Hello, lovely listeners.
Hello, hello.
We have a special treat for you this week.
SBTC went live in New York City.
We were at the RNS 90th Anniversary Symposium and Gala recently.
I haven't been at RNS the whole time.
Well, if you had, your skincare routine is amazing. We are happy to share some of the live event with you this week. We had 3 excellent panelists. We had games.
We had swag.
Here's our live event. Enjoy.
Yes, please.
Please, will you welcome to the stage none other than Roxy Stone and Caitlin Bailey, hosts of Saved by the City.
Hello!
Welcome.
Thank you for coming to RNS's 90th Anniversary Symposium and now this happy hour. And a big thank you to all our amazing listeners out there for tuning in to our first ever live taping of Saved by the City! I'm Roxy Stone.
And I'm Caitlin Bailey.
See the new feature documentary film, Blue Baby, October 9th. The documentary follows 8 boys through Father Edward J. Flanagan's Boys Town, a prison alternative in Omaha, Nebraska. Matters Media filmmakers gained unprecedented access to take the audience inside Boys Town to a world that challenges what people have believed about problem behavior for thousands of years. Blue Baby is a film that goes beyond the heart of a Catholic priest and into the real-world impact of what he created. See it October 9th and visit mattersmedia.org to experience this powerful documentary.
90 years. Gosh. You think Saved by the City will make it that long?
Not unless they have podcasting in the afterlife.
Hey.
Jonathan said we couldn't have a rim shot sound. I'm very sad about that. We are celebrating an important milestone. Of course, Religion News Service is celebrating its 90th anniversary, and we are celebrating 4 years since we first started dreaming and scheming about hosting a podcast where we could talk about things we normally talked about, usually over a martini or two, but also maybe get paid for it and have other people listen to it.
Yeah.
Some of those things have come true.
The origin story of Saved by the City is what Caitlin just said. It's 2 single Christian women moving to New York City from growing up in the heartland, evangelical, and sort of being wide-eyed in the big city. It's a story many of us have heard before or watched in Hollywood. Our lives are just like a movie, is what we're saying, basically. We had heard from plenty of people that the big city would corrupt us, that we would go down those many forewarned slippery slopes and lose our faith. We did get some tattoos, so I don't know, maybe they were right.
Slippery slope indeed. We quickly realized, moving to New York, though, that the world of religion is bigger than we thought, and that this is a good thing, that a place like New York City and its religious diversity enhances rather than detracts from our faith, and that understanding and appreciating other faiths is key to being good neighbors and good citizens.
Which is obviously a big part of what we're doing here today. We're celebrating the journalists who cover religions of all kinds with care and with accuracy. And to celebrate this infinite diversity of religious experience right here in New York City.
This is a very interactive episode of Saved by the City. We are going to have several audience games and quizzes where we test your knowledge of just how religiously diverse New York City is. So there will be questions over the next hour to test your religion, journalism, nerdery. The nerd meter is off the charts in this room. Present company included. So let's get this started. Are there still people drinking and coming in?
Get those stragglers.
Get them, Jonathan. Okay, now the way that the questions are going to work, there's no scientific method for doing this, so we're just going to ask you to raise your hand if you think you know the answer, and Jonathan will be looking for who raised their hand the quickest when he returns.
He's back.
And the first question we have already is a fill-in-the-blank question. It is a quote from Dorothy Day. Now, I wrote a saint of New York City. In fact, she is not a saint. She is in the process of being canonized. We ended up talking about a list on the Pope's desk, which then prompted, does the Pope have a desk? Surely he does. So hopefully saint someday, Dorothy Day, founder of the Catholic worker movement. Of course, here's the fill in blank question. She said, if you have 2 blank, you have stolen one from the poor. Coats. Yes.
Woo! All right. We got some swag for our winner.
There is more swag to come.
We are also delighted this afternoon to be joined by 3 guests, each of whom would really be a great standalone guest on the podcast. 2 of them who already have, one who we hope will join us maybe this season. All right. Joining us on stage are Nancy French, Simranjeet Singh, and Richa Carmarker.
Come on
right.
up. Come on
Woo,
down.
come on up.
Nancy, Simran, and Richa, thank you so much for joining us for this, what we hope will be fun and lighthearted portion of the podcast. You are our guinea pigs. We do need to do some introductions because all of you are impressive people in your own right. We will start here on my left immediately with Nancy French. Nancy is a New York Times bestselling author, most recently of the memoir Ghosted, An American Story. Nancy grew up in the foothills of Appalachia, eventually moved to New York alongside her husband, the New York Times columnist David French. And she established herself as a very successful ghostwriter for conservative leaders. If you all were at the panel this afternoon with the members of the after party, you spoke a little bit about that experience, which was fascinating. And then, of course, 2015, 2016 started to change the dynamics of the conservative movement in the US, and you and your family would later face lots of backlash and harassment for speaking out against Donald Trump in that era. You write movingly, I keep saying you, she, third person. Nancy writes movingly of how Christian faith has sustained her in this time, even as the white evangelical movement has aligned itself largely with Trumpism. So thank you so much for joining us, Nancy. Say hello to the crowd.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
All right. Next up, we have Simranjeet Singh, who teaches at Union Seminary and is the senior advisor of the Aspen Institute's Religion and Society program. Simran is the author of The Light We Give, How Sick Wisdom Can Transform Your Life, where he writes movingly of growing up as the child of Indian immigrants in San Antonio. He's a columnist for Religion News Service, great outlet, and author of the children's book, Faja Singh Keeps Going. Simran identifies as a diehard Spurs fan, an avid marathoner, and lives with his family in Manhattan.
Give it up for Simran.
Say hello, Simran.
Hi, everyone.
Last but not least, we have Richa Carmarker, a reporter for RNS based here in New York City. Richa is a graduate of Columbia's master's program in religion and journalism. She holds 3 bachelor's degrees from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and she mainly reports on Hinduism for RNS. She's recently covered Kamala Harris's Hindu roots, the Hare Krishna movement, and the rise of Indian matchmaking in the US. And we may have a question about that later on.
So does my mom.
All right. Thank you all for being here. Let's give a big round of applause for our guests. All right. These 3 agreed to play some religion news trivia with us, and 100% of them are super excited about it. Yes. All right.
Okay, we're going to take, before we get to the religion nerdery quizzes, we are going to get to know all of you a little bit better. So we have questions specifically tailored for you, and we will start again with Nancy.
Like many of us, Nancy, you came to New York from the hinterlands, so-called. What was that experience like for you?
When David French proposed, he did not have a ring, and I could tell it was spontaneous because of that. And I answered immediately, even though we just dated for a few weeks. And I didn't know him previously. He was a complete stranger. And he proposed, and I said, yeah, I'll marry you. But I have 2 conditions. Number 1, I want to get married in France. I'd never been to France, but I grew up in Paris, Tennessee, so it loomed large in my mind. And number 2, I want to live in New York with a view of the Empire State Building. I'd also never been to New York, but I had watched Muppets Take Manhattan, Sleepless in Seattle. And in my mind, I thought that was the type of thing that a recent Harvard Law graduate would want in a future wife. So I was trying to sound fancy. I realize now that the Empire State Building, which was the only building I knew existed in New York, it's not the best, real estate or whatever. But we got married in France. The boat sank. We still did it. And then we moved to New York, and we had a view of the Empire State Building from our Gramercy Park apartment. If you crawled out on the fire escape and squinted and used your imagination. So for some reason, when I and all of this glory showed up at NYU, they were not incredibly happy to see me. They were like, because I'd met David when I was 20, and he proposed immediately, and we married even though we didn't know each other. And that was when I was 20. So I show up at NYU, and they were like, you're married? You're trapped in a birdcage of missed opportunities. And I was like, you're right. Why do I do his laundry? Anyway, I dropped out of NYU and 2 other colleges. I still don't have a degree, but I am still married.
In Gramercy Park, I don't know what it was like when you were here, but that is some swanky real estate these days.
It was amazing. I love New York City. I would move here in a second if I could. So
it always welcomes you.
All right. Simran, the story of moving to New York City is like the grandfather of all fish out of water stories in its way. But you have another one of those that you wrote about in your book, The Light You Give, your childhood growing up in San Antonio. You talk about growing up, Stick, in the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Well, looking like this, growing up in Texas was strange for a lot of reasons. And one of them was people's assumptions for the longest time that we were just a different type of Christian. And they were like, what denomination are you? and then occasionally as people got to know us a little bit and people would come to us with their efforts of conversion, what I found so fascinating about that was people would use their logics that didn't really have any effect on me, right? They'd be like, but you're going to go to hell. And I was like, I don't believe in hell. So that's fine. And sometimes, and this wasn't always the case, I have 3 brothers, and my brothers and I are very close in age, and humor was really important to us growing up as a survival strategy, but also it's just fun. So we would mess with people. And so a lot of the times on the street, as the missionaries would sort of preach to us and sometimes shout at us, but usually it's Texas, right? Like people then at least were super nice and super loving, and we would see how long they could handle us. And so there was this one time that my brothers and I, all 4 of us together, had the most earnest, we weren't being earnest, but we pretended to be earnest, and somebody sat with us for an hour and a half. And I think they thought they won. Like, I think they thought they had us. And we were like, all right, thanks, we got to go. And there was no follow-up, and they were like walking. So it was kind of messed up. But these were the kinds of things that were part and parcel of our upbringing in Texas. It's funny to think about your story, moving to the city and like it being a different, that's how I felt moving to New York. It was a totally different world. And it was kind of being on the other side of that equation where like all of a sudden I was the Texas boy in New York City and trying to figure myself out, and I felt like other people were always messing with me. So that's that's how it's been. Yeah.
The evangelical guilt you caused those kids. Oh man. I feel that.
We're familiar. So you recently got to speak to Rainn Wilson, the actor known for playing Dwight Schrute on The Office, for your own podcast, which is called Wisdom and Practice. Now, I'm just quoting something I read on your Facebook page, so don't get upset. You said that you were so nervous to speak to Rainn, but you were proud of yourself for not pooping your pants.
Nice.
So what was that like? And what was Rainn like, and what might he say to us if he were here with us this afternoon?
Yeah, it's so interesting because you put these people, and I think a lot of us do this, right? You put people on pedestals and you imagine that they're not real human beings. And we do that with religious figures and we do it with celebrities. And for me, The Office is a show that I grew up on and still watch all the time. And here's this guy who I feel like I know, even though it's not really him. And then I'm going to sit down with him and I'm like, I have to resist like talking about the funniest moments from the show or like my favorite memes or whatever. And so I'm trying to be cool and I'm talking to him, and it turns out he is this guy, as many of you will know, who is so deeply invested in spirituality and faith, and someone who has in many ways made it his mission to use his celebrity to help connect people with spirituality, right? His new book, and we talked a bit about this, it's inspired by his Baha'i tradition and experiences, but he's not trying to tell anybody to be Baha'i. He's just trying to say, hey, there's something lost when we don't have our spiritual connection, and here's what we can regain. Here's what's at stake for us, and here's what would really change us if we tried. I think that's what he'd want us to think about, is like the work that we do is deeply important, even if it doesn't feel like it's always appreciated.
All right, Richa, you've been warned. So let's come back around to that Indian matchmaking event that you went to. Tell us a little bit about that, and will you go back?
Well, Roxy, I actually was not admitted on the list. These are matchmaking conventions that are held at really fancy hotels in the spirit of getting matchmaking to be a cool and prominent way of meeting people again, post all of the dating app, drama that people have and just issues that people are finding are hard to find a match. Anyways, I saw this matchmaking ad on my own personal Instagram, and it was just for Indian people, just for people who were in the age range of 25 to 35 or something like that. It was a application process that was kind of normal stuff. What's your name? What's your age? Where are you from? Also, what do your parents do for work? Where are your parents from? What language do they speak? What faith are you, and what sub-faith are you? So although I was not able to attend, sadly, I think I would have been called out pretty quickly for just reporting and not actually being there for it. But what I've learned is just that while second-generation kids who are Indian are making their own way in trying to be American in this country and, really identifying themselves as such, there is still a strong bond of tradition that exists. The idea that making your parents happy is, is just a really great thing. And so that's pretty much what I found, is that that's never going to change. And as American as we get, we still hold on to these things.
Now, you happen to be the representative for Gen Z on this panel.
Good for you.
So we're intimidated. And we're worried that you're judging like the width of our leg. Not our legs. Well, maybe that too. The width of our jeans. So there's all this reporting and data on the religious disaffiliation of the younger generations. We're hearing all the time that people under 30 are no longer religious. You report on Hindu religious cultures and trends all the time related to Gen Z. So what trends are you seeing in that generation?
I think this might not be a surprise to a lot of the people in this room that the title of spirituality is really appealing to a lot of young people. You don't have to be religious to be spiritual, and spiritual can mean this realm, a different realm, mythology. It can mean a lot of different things. And so I guess trend-wise, yoga has never left as a trend. Yoga, I will say, has been there have been a little bit more discussions on how to kind of appreciate the roots of yoga more, which of course are from Hindu and Indian origins. But I will say that, and I reported on this in this temple in Soho, which you guys should all visit, the Broome Street Ganesha Temple. It's this super interesting place where it's started off as a yoga studio, and it's just a regular New York style building. But there are idols and murtis and photographs of Indian philosophy books, things like that, and yoga classes, and partnerships with skincare brands, and merch, and all these things that are appealing to the average Instagram Gen Z person. And so that I think is just the most interesting aspect of this all, is like it's marketing the same tradition in a different way. So I think they're doing a great job of that. And yeah, shout out, visit.
I want a skincare sponsor.
I know, we really need to work on that.
Glossier, if you're listening.
This is actually a good segue to this question, which is for each one of you. So lightning round. Simran and Richa, you both currently live in New York. Nancy, as mentioned, you have lived here before. So for each of you, what is the most spiritually significant place in the city?
Times Square Church at 51st and Broadway. I started going there before I dropped out of NYU, and I walked into that sanctuary. I don't know if you've been there, but David Wilkerson was the pastor. He wrote The Cross and the Switchblade, which was very popular, I think, in the 60s. I just read it again. But it's a beautiful congregation that's multi-ethnic, and you just don't know what you're going to see there. I was from Tennessee, so I'd never seen anything like this. I walked in the first time, and David Wilkerson gets up, and he made an announcement. He goes, "I'm so sorry to tell you this, but we have just gotten word there are thieves in the congregation. So ladies, when you stand up to sing, you might want to put your purse on your shoulder." So that's the message I have for you. But to all of the thieves that are here, we welcome you.
Amazing.
So my long-standing answer has been Central Park. That's been my refuge. Walks, runs, biking, I mean, anything. One of the only green spaces we have here. So that's probably why. But my shift that I'm experiencing now that I'm at Union is that neighborhood with Niebuhr and Bonhoeffer and Malcolm X and King. I mean, it is so rich with history of like the greats who have walked in this country. And I'm actually really interested in exploring some of the sort of spiritual history of that neighborhood.
Yeah. I've been blessed to live in Harlem for the past 3 years that I've been in New York. And I am a huge fan of gospel music. I have been for a really long time. And, you know, when I was in grad school, I got to cover the Black church as like my beat for covering religion class with Ari Goldman. And I think that really, really spoke to me, as I think it speaks to a lot of people. Music, gospel music in particular, there's just something that I felt in my heart whenever I attended these church services, whenever there was another gospel concert in Blue Note Jazz Club, if you guys know that. But I think that has been my most spiritually beautiful experiences here.
Thank you all. Before we take a sponsor break, we have another audience game. Woo, get ready. All right, get your hands ready. This one is multiple choice. Which Catholic archbishop founded Fordham University in 1841? Here's your multiple choice. John Johnson, John Hughes, Hugh Jackman, Jack Jenkins, Jack Human, or Ed Stetzer?
Do you need to hear them again? John Johnson, John Hughes, Hugh Jackman, Jack Jenkins, Jack Hugeman, and Ed Stetzer.
All right.
B?
Yes.
John Hughes. Let's go.
Yes.
Genevieve, awesome. All right.
You get to choose tote bag or water bottle. Yes, a tote bag winner.
All right. Okay, not to be confused with the director of iconic teen pop movies like 16 Candles and Pretty in Pink. This particular John Hughes was an archbishop. He established Fordham in 1841. He called it a daring and dangerous undertaking, not least because he didn't have the money to do it. All right, thanks for playing, everyone. And there is still one more chance to win an SBTC prize. So get ready.
We are going to move into our religion nerdery quiz show with Nancy, Simran, and Richa very soon. But first...
Religion News Service is an independent, award-winning source of global reporting on religion, spirituality, culture, and ethics.
From Anglicans to Zoroastrians, RNS has religion covered A to Z.
And be sure to check out Religion News Service's other podcast offerings. We've got Martini Judaism with Rabbi Jeffrey Salkin and The State of Belief with Reverend Paul Brandeis Rauschenbusch.
Amber Hacker and Tom Levinson present the newest edition, Money Meet Meaning, exploring the intersection of faith and finance.
And we have more in store. Not just podcasts, but more live events like this one. Also, I think Caitlin and I are going to do an advice column.
This was news to me like 2 hours ago, but I'm not going to say no. Also, Jonathan wants us to do a Saved by the City speed dating and karaoke night. I'm not sure how to pitch this to RNS donors.
I mean, who here would not want to come to an SBTC speed dating and karaoke night? Don't raise your hands. That was...
And Jonathan said he really wants to sing Neil Diamond. So, okay, but getting more serious and less focused on Jonathan for a second. Roxy, we're entering our 8th season of doing SBTC. We started dreaming and scheming 4 years ago, exactly in the middle of a global pandemic. We launched in early 2021. We've interviewed over 100 guests.
Yeah.
We've had several summer series. What has the podcast meant to you?
Well, it's meant I got to talk to you every week, which was my real goal.
It's like a good container for our friendship. Roxy and I have known each other for coming up on 20 years.
Wow.
That's okay. We're not part of Gen Z. But yeah, it feels like a regular weekly appointment for good, like silly but substantive chats, which forms the basis of our friendship.
Yes. And I feel like, well, a lot has happened in the world in the last 4 years, and a lot has happened in our lives. And this has been a chance to process that and to think more deeply and clearly about these things, to talk to a lot of guests who think very differently than we do, to be challenged. And I think it's made me a better journalist. It's made me ask better questions and to be more curious about people's stances, because I think we have like 30 minutes to talk to these guests. And I think we can start out in a place, and just by asking questions, we can end up somewhere unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a highlight from the last 4 years? Like, what's the first standout moment that comes to mind related to Saved by the City?
I mean, I will truly never forget when we went to Washington Square Park and we asked people, what do you think of when you think of evangelicals?
No, what do you think of when you hear the word evangelicals?
Yes,
and this is Washington Square Park.
Yes. So we got a lot of pretty interesting answers, and you can go back and hear those on an episode in our first season called How We Survived the Great Evangelical Betrayal.
The best answer was the girl who said fairies.
Fairies.
And like, we really tried to dig.
We really tried to understand where that came from.
But she was very like confident and clear.
Yeah. She was like, I don't know, I think fairies, like woods. And then she was like, well, like angelic. We were like, okay, I guess we're
getting a little closer.
Word, angel and evangelical. What about you? Is there a highlight episode for you? What has this meant to you?
I mean, I have been truly impressed by all of the people who have said yes to speaking with us. I'm thinking about in season 2, we spoke with Amy Grant. As girls who grew up in evangelical subculture, that was a big deal. We had Krista Tippett on.
I fangirled real hard
last season, and I just felt like my soul energized and invigorated by the conversation, and it felt like, let's keep talking and you can maybe be our therapist. Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, the trajectory of the podcast has mapped onto the trajectory of my time in New York, that I came in with a lot of those narratives intact about the slippery slope. And if you're in the big bad city, that will dilute your faith and your Christian commitment. And if anything, I feel like my faith has gotten richer and deeper and stronger even while it's become more open. And I think I have the podcast to thank for a lot of that growth.
We came into this podcast single Christian women in New York City. Some of those things are still true.
Yeah.
Some of them are not. We'll let you guess which of those are true and not true.
Maybe we should just tell people.
I guess that's right.
Well, last season we dropped the single moniker because
we did.
Because Roxy is no longer single. She got
True.
married this past summer.
Thank you. Thank you.
I got to watch Paul O'Donnell dance at her wedding. I don't know how much longer I will be in New York City, sadly. But I think, oh no.
Tell her why she should stay. Work on her all through the cocktail hour.
But Jonathan feels strongly that the spirit of the podcast can continue.
Yes.
Even if I'm not in Brooklyn.
Let's talk about that. How do we see Saved by the City evolving? Where do we go from here if we're no longer two single Christian women making our way in New York City?
Yeah. Well, I think we learned early on that for the broad audience we hope to reach, we could probably drop the New York City angle anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, I think just talking broadly about topics at the intersection of faith and culture and our own lives is what is interesting to people. Mm-hmm. The New York City as a background is really just that. It's just a background. I think we could definitely stand to speak to people from more religious traditions, for better or worse. Like evangelicalese is very comfortable to both of us because it's what we've been steeped in, but I think we could certainly expand beyond that. I think we should be less serious maybe sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I think we should play more games. I think we should definitely go to more karaoke nights. I don't know where this keeps coming. You literally did it on the podcast. You recorded yourself at a karaoke night for the podcast.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, as life evolves, the podcast will evolve. We don't have to be single or in New York City to still talk about deep things. And I'm going to need the podcast if you leave the city for that weekly standing date. So.
Exactly. And I'm grateful to have that. All right. We are ready, finally, for our final audience quiz.
Are you ready?
Again, raise your hand if you think you know. Jonathan will be looking for the first hand raised and then wait to say your answer until you get the microphone.
All right. Every year, the Jewish Museum hosts the Purim Ball, a gala honoring Queen Esther and her rescue of the Jewish people.
Famous attendees have included the movie director Sofia Coppola, fashion designer Marc Jacobs, and SBTC co-host Roxy Stone.
Here's the question. What dog breed is the unofficial mascot of Purim? That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, poodle.
All right. Get your swag.
Okay, we are ready to test the religious nerdery knowledge of Nancy, Simran, and Richa. And don't be afraid to be very, very wrong. Instead of raising your hand or shouting out the answer, you'll just write what you think is the answer on pieces of paper. And obviously, like more than one person per round could be right. And then Jonathan will tally up the points at the end, because what's the point of playing if there aren't points?
First question. Which neighborhood in New York City is the most religiously diverse, with 189 different religious sites in 1.1 square miles?
Which borough?
Well,
which neighborhood? We will give partial credit for the correct
borough.
borough. So you'll get 1 point for the correct borough, 2 points for the correct neighborhood and the correct borough.
We got a real wisecracker over here in the audience.
Yeah, where's the cane to pull away Kit Doyle?
All right.
Answer?
Richa.
Blushing Queen.
Yeah.
That is correct. And also Simran got it.
I said the place where Sesame Street is filmed.
Jonathan wanted to give points for flair, so we'll see.
Yes. Flushing Queens is the correct answer.
That is the correct answer.
Great job, you guys.
We have a fact check on where Sesame Street was purportedly to have been set, and that was Astoria, Queens. I say that's worth a point.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
All right.
yes.
Well, this next segment, this category of questions, is called SBC or SBTC. We're going to share 3 quotes from either a Southern Baptist Convention president or a host of Saved by the City. You have to guess who said it.
All right. So, yes, we have 3 quotes. The first quote is, whenever the church gets in bed with politics, the church gets pregnant. And our offspring does not look like our Father in heaven.
SBC or SBTC? All right, Risha says SBC. She is correct.
I'm incorrect.
You thought we said that? Oh, no.
Roxanne Stone.
It was the accent.
She does get really preachy sometimes.
It's true.
Yeah, I saed SBC.
Okay.
I know stuff.
That's right. It was the SBC president, J.D. Greer. Your second quote is, complementarian is just a gentler and more covert form of patriarchy. SBC or SBTC?
Complementarianism is just a gentler and more covert form of patriarchy.
All right. Richa?
SBTC.
That is correct.
Caitlin.
That is also correct.
Yeah, I think maybe that's bonus point for Simran since you
All right.
guessed the correct.
And Nancy also says SBTC, although she just wrote T, so that's quite for those flair points.
Okay, third and final quote. COVID did not create the divisions in our church, it just exposed them.
All right, Richa. Okay. We've got Richa says SBTC.
Simran says SBTC. Everybody said this was actually both. So
It is.
He actually said that.
Oh man, he said it. We have to give it to him. All right.
yeah, J.D. Greer said it at this year's convention, and we said it in March 2022. So he was listening to our podcast and then like taking our insight and
That's
using
right.
it in his presidential speech because no one else had thought of that before us.
Or ever said it. So definitely took it from us. We've got another category of game. All right. In this one, we're looking for the closest answer to the exact number. So it's Price is Right style, closest to the actual number without going over. How many religious sites across all faith traditions are in New York City? Anybody got an answer yet?
7.
Oh, that's okay. She's not going over.
$1.
I have a 1,500.
1,500.
5,250.
Oh my gosh, that is very
Okay.
close.
The correct answer is 5,441.
Richard gets it. Wow.
Wow.
I don't know if she understands the rules of Price is Right. She just got really lucky.
No, I'm too young. I've never seen that show, actually.
Explain what Price is Right.
You just got really lucky. You're very smart, not just lucky.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, that was really impressive. Okay.
All right.
Final category. Now we're calling this, forgive us, Pope or Snopes. Okay, now you're all journalists, most of you journalists, so you know that Snopes is the fact-finding website that counters misinformation on the internet. So if something is Pope, it really happened and it probably involves a Pope. If something is Snopes, we made it up.
All right. In the 9th century, the Catholic Church held a cadaver synod where one pope exhumed the body of a previous pope whom he didn't like and brought it to trial. Pope or Snopes?
Okay, Richa says Pope.
Simran says
Snopes.
I hope it's true, Pope.
Nancy says Pope. It is true, y'all.
It is so true.
Next question. This past Lent, Pope Francis got into trouble for telling Catholics, eat whatever you want. The sacrifice is not in the stomach, but in the heart. That was a horrendous Italian accent. Argentinian. Yeah. I don't know where I am on the map, okay? Eat whatever you want. The sacrifice is not in the stomach, but in the heart. Pope or Snopes?
Pope.
Snopes.
Snopes. He never said such a thing.
Simran gets it. All right. Last one. In 1992, the Catholic Church formally apologized to Galileo for persecuting him back in 1633 after he declared that the moon revolves around the earth. Pope or Snopes? Pope. We can't read.
We can't read yours.
Oh, sorry. Pope.
Okay.
Okay. This was a trick question.
It's true.
It's Snopes because, in fact, Galileo declared that the earth revolves around the sun, not that the moon revolves around the earth.
We're so mean.
And we're getting, let the record show, the audio record show, we're getting thumbs down.
We're literally getting
from
our guests.
Okay, but that is it. That was awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. That was
very fun.
You did very
fun.
That is it. Jonathan is going to be compiling the scores. The people want to know. But
We're so happy to announce Richard the
Yay! Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much to all of our guests and to all of you for joining us.
And we want to say finally that Saved by the City is a Religion News Service production.
Senior producer is Jay Woodward, and the consulting editor is Paul O'Donnell. Our editor is Julia Wyndham.
Chaz Rousseau put together our look, and Martin Fowler wrote our theme music. I'm Caitlin Beatty.
And I'm Roxy Stone.
Thanks for listening.